Hey there, this is Jexy with the Systems Alliance, and in this video we're going to go over what probably a lot of you will consider the death of Blizzard. Now, maybe not the death of Activision Blizzard, but this definitely seems like Activision completely taking over Blizzard and Blizzard having zero say in it. So, unsurprising to many, but let's go ahead and we'll check out the details. So while I know a lot of you still have questions about Jason Schreier and Kotaku, he does still do some good investigative reporting, and given everything we see, once again, there's no reason to doubt anything that he puts in this article. So let's go ahead and take a look at it. It turns out that Blizzard is desperately trying to scale down, and by Blizzard, I mean Activision. And by scale down, I mean get rid of employees. So in terms of getting rid of employees, you wonder, okay, well, how bad are they trying to get rid of employees? Well, according to Eurogamer, employees are being offered an entire year's worth of salary to leave. So a year's worth of salary just to leave? I mean, talk about planning to cut costs in the future. I mean, I guess it's better than just firing everyone, but at the same time, their entire plan, the mandate of it is to have as little bad PR as possible. So if they can pay someone for another year knowing that they'll be slimmer in the future, they're going to go ahead and do it. And apparently they've been offering packages like these over 5 times, where they kept increasing the number of times they offered it and each time increasing the value of the offer. So obviously everyone, if you're going to be able to find a job afterwards and someone's going to pay you a year's worth of salary just to leave, you'd probably take that and you wouldn't be able to blame him. That being said, over in Europe, where this particular case is happening, a lot of people who work there are obviously understandably afraid. They don't know what direction this company is going. They relocated over there with their families specifically to start a new life working for a great company, who they thought, at least at the time, like Blizzard. But now, with Activision taking over the helm, it doesn't seem like there's much hope for the future of any employee unless you're on a development team. But we'll talk more about that later, since it doesn't look like they're going to be developing the games that anyone really wants. One Blizzard program, for example, is called Career Crossroads. It offers healthy severance packages to people who voluntarily take buyouts and choose to leave the company. At first, Career Crossroads was designed for veteran customer service representatives who had been at Blizzard for more than 5 years. But this year, it opened it up to quality assurance and IT. Blizzard has also lowered the number of years required to take a buyout, opening up Career Crossroads to even more employees, likely in hopes of increasing those numbers. Said one former employee, over the course of the last year, Blizzard has been trying very actively to find creative ways to cut costs that won't draw negative press attention. And who could blame Blizzard? Because as you can see, the negative press attention definitely affects them. It affects their stock value, it affects the employees in there, morale, quality, everything like that. But that being said, they're still doing it. And I also find it interesting the departments that are being cut. Quality assurance? IT? Are they trying to be more like Fallout 76? Are they trying to be more like a broken EA game? I'm not really sure what they're going for here. And of course, customer service, something that they pretty much have none of right now since everyone's hating them so much. But I mean, look at those 3 positions that they're cutting. That doesn't seem like a very good idea, unless, of course, you don't need them anymore because you're not going to have games that are customer-centric. The article notes that at the same time, Blizzard is actively hiring for its game development teams as it continues to work on new games for franchises like Diablo and Overwatch. So first, I just want to stop right there. We know about those new games, Diablo Immortal. And what are they going to have? Overwatch Go now? Some mobile Overwatch game? Given what we've seen recently, I don't think our expectations are too high. As the article says, there's no way to know what the results of this cost cutting might look like in the coming years, but it's clear that the direction from the top is to release more games, which could ultimately benefit fans of Blizzard. And that I do have to disagree, since more games, more crappy games that fans hate, I don't think will actually benefit fans of Blizzard. I think what benefits fans of Blizzard is Activision getting out, separating their entire company with Blizzard, and Blizzard going on to make their games that have longer development cycles, but the quality is great. But obviously that doesn't seem to be the plan anymore, and I think as fans of Blizzard, unlike what this article says, we're all going to suffer for it. As the article continues to say, the big question, as expressed by those who work and have worked at the company, is what kind of impact these cultural shifts will have on one of the most legendary studios in gaming, one that is regularly ranked among the best video game companies to work for. And of course, what impact will it have on Blizzard's games? Last month, a Kotaku investigation revealed that Blizzard staff have been told to reduce expenses while at the same time produce more games. There are likely several reasons for the shift in priorities, including a lack of consistent output, a weak year for Activision Blizzard overall, and Activision's increasing influence on Blizzard, which has traditionally been an autonomous company but has been overseen by Activision CEO Bobby Kotick since the two companies merged in 2008. That influence has grown this year in many ways, both blatant and subtle. So when they say weak performance and a lack of consistent output, what exactly are they talking about here? Are they talking about when Activision found out that Overwatch can make over $1 billion a year and that is the new low bar set, that they should always make over $1 billion a year from a game that it's like, well, they already had one. Do they really think that if they set out another game, that will also make over $1 billion a year? This line of thinking is what gets you in trouble. This line of thinking, this short-term thinking, is what's going to lead you buried in the ground as far as a company goes. And when you talk about poor performance, which games are we talking about, and why are we trying to blame Blizzard for this? I think we only have Activision to blame for that. We have Call of Duty Black Ops 4, which definitely failed. I mean, it said in their earnings call that it's missing expectations. Why? Well, other than the entire game being stale and not coming up with any new ideas, other than copying Fortnite, which, okay, Battle Royale, cool, I guess. They got rid of 50% of the player base who used to only play the campaign. And how'd they do that? Because they got rid of the campaign. So in cutting costs by getting rid of a campaign that's more expensive to make but brings in a whole different audience, and putting in a Fortnite thing, which is not bringing over any Fortnite players, it's just giving Call of Duty fans another thing to play. Is that what they're talking about? Because guess what? That was Activision's call to do that. That's not anyone else's fault. That's not Blizzard's fault. That's on you, Activision. You're the one who sabotaged yourself. And speaking of self-sabotage, let's check out Destiny 2. In a recent earnings call, you said that Destiny 2 was also missing expectations and not meeting the performance goals that they expected, and they called the expansion, most recent expansion of Destiny 2, a failure. And of course, you can tell that Bungie wishes they never sold out to Activision, because on Bungie's official Twitter, they came out and said, "We disagree with you, Activision," which is their boss. They're disagreeing publicly with their boss, and they're saying, well, we actually think the expansion is not a failure. Now, it could go back and forth and be arguable whether or not it's a failure in terms of, is it a good expansion or is it a bad expansion? But let's just talk strictly money. Why wouldn't it have sold as much? Well, because the player base is gone. Activision made so many bad moves that the player base is essentially gone. In fact, if you include all the expansions, and if you price them all together, you basically have, hey, a game that is no more improved than Destiny 1, which also had a lot of problems, and you're just getting, okay, it's like a sequel that hasn't improved on anything. That's basically what you got, because when Destiny 2 first launched, it stunk. Features were removed, things that used to be able to get for free now cost money. It was just Activision trying to nickel and dime you every way they possibly could, trying to monetize the game, and what did they do? They chased all their fans away. Destiny 2 started out huge for streaming. Entire channels dedicated to streaming and talking about Destiny 2 dried up. They had to move on to another game. Why? Because they weren't getting the views anymore, and the game wasn't fun anymore. So when you kill a game, as Activision did, the response is, well, it's not meeting expectations because they killed it, so we're going to put the blame on Blizzard and then force them to cut staff because we screwed up on our end. I mean, Activision seems to be pointing the finger at everybody in the world but them. The article goes on to read, the Career Crossroads program is one example. Another, according to 3 Blizzard staff who all left recently, is a power shift that has seen the finance department cultivate influence that it never had in the past. Finance in general in Blizzard has been one of these invisible functions that's there but doesn't have a say, said one veteran employee who left recently and asked not to be named because they were not authorized to talk to the press. Now they're suddenly in meetings. Said a second, who asked not to be named, a lot of decisions are now being driven by business folks, marketing, and finance folks. There's a real struggle now between developers and the business people. Strategic decisions are now being driven by the finance group. And according to the article, these decisions could range from major ones, like which technology we should use for this new incubation project, to minor ones, like how much we should spend on BlizzCon goodie boxes this year. Side note, they're going to have to spend a lot on BlizzCon goodie boxes next year, assuming they even have BlizzCon. But moving back to the article. It's a major cultural shift, one driven by top executives at the company, including Armin Zerza, who was CFO at the studio before he became COO in late 2017. Under Zerza, Blizzard has brought in a number of business-minded employees both from Activision and the consulting company McKinsey, many of whom might have different priorities than longtime Blizzard staff or those with development backgrounds. So if that doesn't tell you the writing's on the wall for Blizzard, I don't know what does. The top Blizzard creators and minds have already left. The poor employees who are left trying to bucket out water of a sinking ship, they're obviously leaving too. So what do you really have in place anymore? Well, you have Activision in place. You could definitely argue now that Blizzard is gone because it's not Blizzard anymore. It's just Blizzard in a title, but it's all Activision employees calling the shots. Earlier this year, new Blizzard CFO Amrita Ahuja, who also came over from Activision, told employees during an all-hands meeting that it was time to start reining in their spending. This was a common theme at many of Blizzard's departments this year, according to those who were there. That speech from Amrita about cutting costs, that wasn't a one-time thing, said one person who worked on a non-development team. We were told to cut costs on a monthly basis. So far, that cost-cutting has mostly taken place in non-gaming departments, with one big exception. Last week, Blizzard announced plans to reduce the staff of Heroes of the Storm and eliminate its esports program. It was a surprising move to those who made their careers off Heroes, but among Blizzard games, this was the weakest link. Heroes of the Storm had always struggled to find as much financial success as Blizzard's other big hits. And to talk about Heroes of the Storm for a little bit, it is understandable why it would be canceled, but it was just once again the way it was done. Now, yeah, it's difficult. How can you give the people who rely off of it, the people who have their careers relying on it, how they feed their family and themselves, how do you tell them, hey, we're going to be slowing this down, we're going to be stopping it in a year, whatever the time frame is? How do you give them a heads up on that without having the news get out and having everyone bail anyway? I don't know how you do that. Would it have been better? Would players have understood and stood by the game for that last year while they figure out their next career path in their life? Maybe they would have stuck by, but it probably would have still been a massive crash. So Blizzard, yeah, they didn't do it the right way, but canceling Heroes of the Storm sort of makes sense financially because while, yeah, it might have been making money, I don't know if it was making much money at all compared to everything else which makes all the money. And apparently among Blizzard staff, everyone other than game development is worried about layoffs. I mean, the best way to cut costs is to lay your people off. Now, is that the smartest way to cut costs? Maybe not. Is it the smartest way to make more profit? No. I mean, maybe making quality games that people actually want to play and will actually give you your money for, that's probably the best way. But then again, these people aren't gamers. They don't know the industry. They really don't know what they're doing. They're just people trying to get their most money for the next, 5 or 6 years when they inevitably get fired, and then the company's in the dirt by then. But for right now, this is what we have to deal with. The article goes on to state that to look at Activision and Blizzard is to see two companies that for over a decade have followed connected but very different models. Under Bobby Kotick, Activision has found success through annual releases of games like Call of Duty and, until recently, Skylanders. Meanwhile, under co-founder and longtime CEO Mike Morhaime, Blizzard has marched at its own pace, sticking with old games for the long haul and releasing new ones whenever the company felt like they were ready. Blizzard has gone years without releasing a brand new game, while Activision hasn't let a fall go by without a new Call of Duty since 2004. So before I continue on, I think we all know that the reason why Call of Duty is viewed as subpar as it is by the gaming community is because they release one every year. And that's the same reason why sports games are looked down upon by the gaming community. They can't improve too much over the last year if they have no development time to do it. That's why you look at some games and you're like, wow, this looks amazing. The people look so lifelike. But yet in sports games, they still look like cartoons. Their movements still look choppy. Why? Because you have no time to develop the game. There's just no time. That's why things look weird. That's why they aren't up to the quality that people want. Now, Morhaime is gone and Activision appears to have more influence on Blizzard than it ever has. Blizzard is a special place, said one former employee. A lot of people are worried about the future of Blizzard. If the Activision method seeps in more, what that's going to become. And if you'd like to know what that's going to become, look no further than the announcements like Diablo Immortal, canceling HOTS and taking a look at their customer service. So as you can see here by this tweet, Blizzard customer service for Europe, they mentioned that our callback and live chat services will be closed from 1700 o'clock. Please open a ticket request if assistance is required. Obviously, they're being impacted by all these people leaving, all this staff leaving. How can you not? Without creating new internal systems to make that work, there's no way you can be as efficient as you were before without all of the same number of people as before. A lot of companies have learned this, but right here, you're already seeing the effects. We're seeing the effects everywhere in the quality of games being released. A lot of people, like yourself in the comment section, might say that Blizzard hasn't been great since before StarCraft 2. I mean, a lot of people did not like Diablo 3. While it was critically acclaimed and sold a lot of copies, a lot of people say how it was kind of like Star Wars The Last Jedi, where people had to see that movie twice just to make sure that, yeah, they didn't actually like it. And then, of course, you saw the suffering with Solo, a Star Wars story, and how much money that made compared to all the previous Star Wars. Are we seeing the same here with Blizzard? People have lost faith. They're not going to buy the next Blizzard game. The thing that I think people don't understand, what business people don't understand, who are not only out there in the public, but also at Activision when it comes to Blizzard, is that the hardcore PC fans are the ones who support Blizzard. This is what Blizzard's audience is. You know, they had that market cornered, or at least they had that market cornered. And now you're seeing the backlash. And the backlash from this community and from gamers in general is unlike any a business can normally see. This is not Wells Fargo, who can just do terrible things to their customers, you know, illegal things, all this terrible stuff that they do, making people homeless, stealing from veterans, all the stuff that Wells Fargo does. While, yeah, sure, it's worse than what Activision and Blizzard do. For some reason, people just, if it doesn't affect them personally, it's banking, it's whatever, they don't seem to care. But with this, the gamers have revolted. They did the same thing against EA, and now EA stock is down nearly 50%. They did the same thing with Bethesda and Fallout 76, and that game sales are just in the gutter. So can we expect more of that with fans for Activision Blizzard going forward? You let me know. Sound off in the comment section below. Be sure to like, subscribe, share, hit me up on Twitter, and we'll catch you next time.